Special Olympics British Columbia Coach Diary with Dr. Laura Ferris. Communication and Behaviours.
You have a tremendous amount of influence, and one of the most powerful tools you have as a coach is your communication skills. What you say, how you say it, and when you say it will influence your athletes' thoughts, feelings, and actions. And it is that powerful, especially with athletes as they're developing and learning how to do skills, is that you become a little bit of what they say to themselves. So that it becomes important to be able to communicate consistently and effectively. Because different athletes will have different perceptions of what you say. And that is ultimately where it gets a little bit confusing as a coach. You may say the same thing to two different athletes who have two totally different responses to it. I've got you. You've got this, as an example. One athlete will think, yes, coach believes in me. The other athlete will think, what if I screw up? Coach will be so disappointed. And that's all based on their experiences. So the best thing you can do as a coach is just try to be consistent in how you provide feedback and reinforcement. There's an approach that is very, very popular to how you create the positive climate for your athletes. And it's called the Mastery Approach to Coaching. And this was developed by Smith and Small, who are two researchers and sports psychologists at the University of Washington. And it's been a tremendously effective program. And they focus on four main components. They focus on positive reinforcement, mistake contingent encouragement, corrective instruction, and sound technical instruction. So I'm just going to go through each of these very quickly to give you a sense of what they are and what they mean. Positive reinforcement we hear a lot of. And I would say that most coaches that I come across are very positive. They'll say, good job, good try. But what's the difference between good job and good try versus something like, I really liked how hard you worked to get that ball? Or something like, way to sprint right through the finish line. Those are two very specific comments. And what it does is it puts a picture in the athlete's head of what they can do again. When we say good job or way to go, it's general encouragement. And it's not that it's not good, but sometimes it's not as effective as it could be to help the athlete know what they can do again and try to repeat it. And that's really what positive reinforcement is catch the athlete doing something right and then reinforce it. But you have to be specific. So part of it is being able to identify key things that you're looking for when an athlete is performing a skill. And then as soon as the athlete does it, reinforce that. In some cases, you even need to find parts of something that they've done well. And that will encourage them to be persistent and keep that main part up that will hopefully lead into the whole skill execution. The athlete gets that attention that they want, and then they get excited to be able to reproduce that again. So remember, with positive feedback, it needs to be specific. And it needs to hopefully be process-oriented, related to the skill, or reinforcing effort. Sometimes I work with coaches who think they reinforce effort. But again, it has to be specific, and you need to give the athlete that information. Like, way to hustle after that ball on that right wing there. And the sooner you can give it, if you can give it immediately, then the athlete, there'll be no uncertainty as to why that is given, and they'll know exactly what they can try to do to reinforce that. Mistake contingent encouragement. This is where you set the climate for mistakes. Is it okay to make mistakes? Now, for the most part, I think people are pretty good, but sometimes we either don't say anything, or we maybe have some body language that implies that we're not so happy with what happened. But what we want to create is a climate where it's okay. Yes, you made a mistake. Let's look at that. And if you're able to kind of get the athlete to think about, well, what could you do there? What could you adjust? What could you do better? And if they don't know, then you provide them with that little bit of feedback. It can help reduce things like fear of failure, which is a huge impediment to athlete being able to try new things and learn new things. So by just providing that little bit of encouragement when they make a mistake and potentially providing a bit of instruction as to how they could correct it, we alleviate the athlete's anxiety, and we also provide them with next steps. And that's very powerful when we look at learning. Corrective instruction given in a positive fashion. Now, some of you may have heard of this. It seems fairly simple. It's called the sandwich approach. You start with something positive. And sometimes it's hard to find something if the skill hasn't been produced really well. But you can always find something. Good approach. Way to swing your arms. Then you follow up with what you'd like to see better. I think if you do step right beside the ball, you'll be able to get better lift on the ball when you swing through. Then follow up with, if you do that, you're going to see a lot more distance in your ball. I really think you can do this. So it's giving that positive, for whatever it is, instruction so that they know what to improve, and then sending them off with the idea that if they work hard at it, they're going to be able to get it. It's the simplest way. If it's one thing you take from this, it can be a very, very powerful tool to motivating athletes and also providing them with a vision for what they can do better. Sound technical instruction sort of follows on to that. The idea that you're providing concise, specific information related to the task, what you would like them to see. And this is why being positive and following this approach is the most difficult. Because it's much easier to say what they haven't done than it is to identify what they've actually done. So as a coach, it's helpful if you can identify things that you're looking for. Body position, hand position, movements, actions, anything like that, and even have those in advance that you know kind of what are key things for a skill performance. Then you're able to provide them with that instruction when you need it, and it's specific. Because in the moment sometimes we'll default to good job, nice try. And as much as those are nice, they don't necessarily provide me with the information I really need to get better. And that's what being effective as a coach means, is providing that communication and using it to its fullest. Positive outcomes occur when coaches do those things, when they provide positive reinforcement, when they follow it up with sound technical instruction, and when you reinforce effort. That is something an athlete can always control. And if you reinforce it, they will continue to persist and recreate that, and ultimately that will move them towards learning the skill. When they've studied this, they've found that just by training coaches to do these simple things versus coaches who haven't been trained, it actually has a significant impact on athletes' self-esteem, lower levels of anxiety, higher team cohesion, higher perception of their coach, and the enjoyment of the sport overall. I think that's a pretty good trade-off. So remember, positive reinforcement, sound technical instruction, and reinforcing effort.